Hi, what I'm going to do in this video is give you a brief introduction to the strategy behind my betting picks for NFL spread betting. While researching spread betting strategies and techniques, this is one of the books that I came upon, and within it, it describes sort of the central tendency scheme for over-under type betting. What I did is I adapted some of the techniques to be win-loss spread betting. Some of the other strategies in the books didn't really work for me, or I didn't find them out to be quite as valid, but I at least wanted it's good to read if you want to get into how I got the background to do this strategy. So all NFL games have a spread to win against them, and sometimes it's a positive number for the losing team and it's a negative number for the winning team. In this particular case, Miami was -6, so they're supposed to win by 6. I came up with a result where they won by 7 points. Therefore, what I did for a calculation is combine those two together and really say that the Dolphins won by +1 against what the betting public and the odds makers had thought. If you continue this strategy throughout a year, and average it and do that other stuff like that, you'll see that basically there's a central tendency. I'll show you a chart a little later that does that. This chart shows that average spread for just the 2012 teams, the 32 teams. You see each line represents a team and where they were during the year. And I also put a standard deviation in there from a high and a low, one standard deviation. And you can see how that with the thick black lines, it sort of that deviation gets better as the year goes on. That's showing that people understand it a little better. There's a couple outliers as you look at this pretty colorful chart, but you'll see that most of them fit this sort of central tendency scheme. I get a lot of questions on whether I can predict the next week's winner, and basically, statistically, it's not a great method that I can accurately predict the next week's winner, but I can, in general, predict over the next 3 weeks whether or not a team will have a win against the spread, and so I can do that with pretty good accuracy. So armed with the knowledge that you will win in the next series of 3 betting weeks, what you can do is adapt a Martingale betting scheme, and what that basically is that the first week you'll bet this amount, and the next week a greater amount, and the week after that a greater amount. So if you win after 1 week, you'd win $1, 2 weeks $2, 3 weeks $3, and if you happen to bail out, you lose that $13 total that you put in there, and that's kind of puts a cap on it too. So it's a good deal. As long as you can find some soft spots where you're guaranteed to win in sort of a 13-to-1 type ratio. Obviously, if you have one of those bad weeks on a team where you start a streak and you lose all 13, then pretty much the rest of the year is shot for that team, being that there's only 16, 17 weeks. So you need to pick your spots, and that's what this strategy does. Sometimes people ask, aren't you going to put sports books out of business or anything else like that, and how does it work? Basically, people put money down on a game, either the positive or the negative side, and when they do, and they're a loser, they pay $10 out to the winners. That's basically what the casino does, even though they hold the money or your sports book. And then they keep a fee, and this 10-to-1 ratio is pretty standard on the betting. So yeah, off all betting, as long as the sports book can balance its amount of money on both sides of the coin, they'll eventually make out with a dollar's profit for every $22 bet. So they don't have a problem with it. I don't have a problem with it. You just don't want to be part of that loser pack. I drew the losers as a bigger number there. I'm assuming that if I win 20 grand a year, there's not one person losing 20 grand, but there's a whole series of people losing small amount of money and betting on NFL games. So I translated that chart you saw earlier, which is the 2012 aggregate teams, and I've colored in red the areas where a three losing streak. If you started your betting there, that you would lose that 3 and you'd lose all your money. So those are areas to avoid. And what you can see is you can see some trends. Obviously, even when it gets tighter later on, you know, the numbers, even though they're not as much losing above and below the lines later after week 8. You'll see that as a percentage. They're not that 13-to-1 ratio, but anything inside there is after week 8. And before week 8 tends to be on the loser side, but these are areas you want to avoid. Let me circle some of those areas. So you have a soft area, you know, before week 8 or so, where people are really underperforming to what the public and the spread thinks, and eventually they come and shock you. At least not a lot of big negatives there. But after week 8 or so, you have to be within. I've got that standard deviation set. It's a little bit below 5, but generally the public gets it spot on there, and so you're going to win some, you're going to lose some, but within 3 you'll probably win. And I guess outside there is just not enough data points to support this theory. So I'll draw in some red circles here that shows the areas where you have just a high rate of those 3 Martingale crap out losses. So in general, those 2 black areas are the areas where seems to work pretty well, that you're going to have if you bet on most of the teams that are in that situation. You'd get that 13-to-1 ratio and you'd be making some money. Just as a check to the strategy, this is what I call the 2-loss teams, or teams that lose twice and then win the 3rd game. Of course, I win $3 profit if I started a thread at the beginning of that. So those are my max profit people, and what you'll see that there's a good percentage of those in the same areas that I drew in as black before, the early dogs, early underperformers, and then once everybody gets settled in, people around the central tendency there seem to do a great job for winning. And so this is a combination chart where I drew in red the 3 triple losers, and then blue it's the 2 loser and winner, or my max profits, and you'll kind of see they show that same scheme with the underdogs, early underdogs, and then after week 8 just the central tendency kicks in. You're going to win and lose. Of course, this is one season. This is 2012. I've got 28 seasons worth of data. It makes a very messy chart, but you just do the numbers, the math behind it over there. I also subdivide and pick a couple other variables that I track that help me get along the path of getting that prediction rate up and getting the maximum profit out of it. So that's a good scheme to start with, but yeah, you definitely don't want to get stung by triple losers. So I hope you enjoyed this strategy session, and like I said, with all the extra variables and data in there, if you want to try to do this strategy yourself, go ahead, but if you don't want to do it, or you just want some weekly picks and you're willing to take those picks, that's ATS101.com is a site I put together that collects that data, and I'll be happy to communicate with you through that site. Thank you. Bye.